Hey, welcome. As you come in, if you would please say hi and tell us where you're from. Give a few minutes here for a few more people to get in before we get going. It was a beautiful day here in the Ozarks. How about you guys? I apologize for the few hiccups here tonight, trying to use a new software for streaming to see if it get better audio quality. The audio was cutting in and out last time. If you can hear me fine, would you please type five into the chat? Thank you. I appreciate it. How are you tonight? Is it Mateen? Oh, hanging in there. It was a good day today. My granddaughter turned 1 today, so that was fun. Where are you from, Martine? Is the volume cutting in and out on you, Mateen? New Jersey. Yeah, okay. I'm from the Ozarks. That's kind of, let's see, Southwest Missouri, Northeast Oklahoma, and Northwest Arkansas, kind of that area. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Last time it kept cutting in and out really bad, and my back hurts all the time, so I'm always like rocking back and forth and moving, and so I wasn't sure if it was cutting out because I kept getting too far away from the mic, or if it was a software. I think it was actually the software. This Blue Yeti microphone is owned or made by Logitech, and it seems like maybe their software was actually what was jacking up the last one. So while we're waiting here, just a few more minutes to allow a couple more people to join in before we get started. Um, if you guys wouldn't mind, share with me the other channels that you like watching and why you like watching them, if you would please. Excuse me. All right, guys, we're about 10 minutes in, so let's go ahead and get started. And the people that come late, they can catch the replay if that's of value to them. All right. Regarding crypto, my channel. Okay. All right. Cool. Are you currently invested in any cryptos, Martine, or is that something that you're still learning about and wanting to get involved in? All right. So back kind of on topic here. The couple things I wanted to talk about tonight. The first is what are some other channels that you enjoy watching? So I just kind of made a list in no particular order of some of the different channels that I like to watch. I watch on a regular, consistent basis, and tell you why I like them. And most all of the channels that I watch are pretty wholesome type channels. I don't I'm just not in anything that's, edgy or, just different things like that. To each their own, but let's see. The first is Outdoors with the Morgans. And I like this channel because it's a guy that, built his YouTube business, so to speak, doing videos or whatever, and now has like, an excavator and track skid loader or CTL compact track loader. And yeah, I just like watching stuff like that. It's of interest to me seeing people develop their own property. And let's see here. The next is Captain Kleeman, 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 and he does a lot of that same type of stuff. Like right now, he's rebuilding a backhoe, which is kind of cool, so that he can use it to develop his own property. And he's building a what do they call those? It's styrofoam foundation with concrete in it. I forgot to turn the light on. Well, there we go. I'm not quite so dark now. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's see. Martin says that if he wants to watch something about economics, he watches Richard Werner. Okay, I don't think myself I've heard Richard Werner, but I'll definitely keep that in mind as something to check out. But anyways, back to Captain Kleeman. He's building. He calls it the YouTube yacht. He's basically building like a cabin that he can rent out, and it's out in the woods, and it's going to look like a yacht when it's done. But it's made out of the insulated concrete forms, or ICF. That's it. Insulated concrete form ICF, and so that's kind of neat. And, just developing their property, different things like that. Um, the next is Wild Wonderful Off Grid, and I like watching them because same thing. It's basically a pretty wholesome show. They started out building a house or a cabin on their property, and um, sorry, my mind just went blank there for a minute. Um, and, they have 3 kids, and once they got their house built, then they bought a project house to rebuild that they're going to use to rent out, that type of thing. And so you learn a lot by watching them as well. The next is Andrew Camerata, and again, the same thing. Kind of a common theme here for me. I like watching people who are developing their own property. Building things, fixing things, replacing things. Um, let's see here. Oh, and Andrew Camerata, he makes really long videos, but a lot of people love watching his stuff. Um, hour and a half videos. He's had some over the years that have been like 2.5 hours, different things like that. But anyways, he lives in upstate New York, and it started out that he was building a castle out of shipping containers, and then is kind of morphed into, he bought like a mountaintop somewhere near him in upstate New York there, and he's developing the property. And so he's trying to put in roads and things like that. But again, that's the kind of thing I like. Let's see here. The next is the Prepared Homestead. I like watching them as well. I think they're in the area somewhere. I've not yet had the chance to meet. I think their names are Travis and Rivka or something like that. But video, whatever. They seem like nice people, and I know they put on like meet and greets and things like that, and preparedness expo, different things like that. I've not gone to any of those or met them, but they have good content, generally speaking, that I like watching. All right, let's see here. Next is Lumna Acres, and kind of the same thing. Hey, 10 Tigers, welcome. Oh, will I be putting up links for these later? Yeah, I tell you what, Tin Tigers, I'll post the channel names on the video here, and when I'm done, the video will be uploaded to my channel, so you can watch them. Um, but again, Lumna, Lumnah acres, and same thing, right? They're building a homestead and developing roads and different things like that, and things I'm interested in. Let's see here. The next is Dirt Perfect, and Dirt Perfect works with, or I should say the other way around. Captain Kleeman actually works with Dirt Perfect, and that's how he got started doing YouTube stuff. And Dirt Perfect is an excavator, has an excavation business, and sometimes I just like to watch that. It's relaxing, and I don't know. I just like watching people operate equipment. Someday, I'd like to have some equipment like that so that I can develop my own property and build things. And then that goes along with, I think his name is Stanley Gendek or something along those lines. I don't know how to say his name, but he goes by Dirt Monkey. So it's like Stanley Dirt Monkey Gendek or Gondek, something like that. Um, and he owns a um, not like traditional landscaping business, more like, they do like big, huge retaining walls and different projects like that. And he's also has like a cabin out in the woods and whatnot. So sometimes he does videos about, you know, property maintenance and things like that, which I like to watch. Let's see, a couple more that, and again, the guys, these are in no particular order. These are just channels that I find myself watching the most. The next is Keeping It Dutch, and they're somewhere here in the Ozarks as well. Don't really know these folks. Just I like their content. They're building a homestead, and they're, I guess, off the grid. And so for them, that seems to be of value. Um, for me, I don't have anything necessarily against being quote unquote off the grid, but if I were to be quote unquote off the grid, it would look a lot like this, which is extremely hard to do, by the way. It takes quite a bit of money to be able to do everything that you might want to do if you were doing that. And then the next one I wanted to tell you guys about is Ambition Strikes. Um, and they're in like North Idaho or something like that. And for those of you that don't know, that tends to be, pretty strongly preparedness mindset type people in those areas, and they're completely off grid. However, they've got a solar and electric system that better than most houses that are on the grid have. And so their day-to-day life looks a lot like this, right? And they're even set up, they can run like a plasma table and welders and the whole nine yards. Their solar and electric system is so robust that they can do anything that they want to do, which, like I said, that for me personally, that appeals to me. I like that. And again, that's called Ambition Strikes. Tin Tiger says, I like watching Keeping It Dutch for his homestead security videos, mostly drug users showing up. Yeah, that can definitely be a problem when you're out in the country. I know when I was a sheriff's deputy, it could definitely be that way at times for sure. A lot of times it's not really even drug users. It's teenagers parking and steaming up the windows, if you know what I mean. So, all right, let's see here. And there's some other ones that I'm aware of that I don't really watch that often. One of those is Pure Living for Life. I never got into watching these guys, but they've recently been putting out videos talking about cyberbullying and stuff like that. So yeah, honestly, I'm still kind of like, let's see here. Tin Tiger says someone followed his wife home and the dogs took care of it. Okay, cool. Who was that? Was that um, Keeping It Dutch? What's her name? Brandy? Is that who you're talking about? Tin Tigers? Was that Brandy? But anyways, the Pure Living for Life. I did watch some of their recent videos talking about the cyberbullying and whatnot, and they brought up some good points. Okay, Tin Tiger says yes, that was Brandy, the wife in Keeping It Dutch. Excuse me. Let's see here. To finish up on Pure Living for Life, they did bring up some good points, and that's just simply especially for people who are content creators, and for me, just talking to you guys, when I'm talking to you, a lot of times, I don't say where I live, right? I sure as heck don't give up my address or different things like that. And the reason for that is because, well, I'm a normal person, and most of you all out there most likely are normal people as well. It's like that 1% of people that are out there that aren't normal. And those are the people that you have to watch out for. So you don't want to make it any easier for, those, whatever you want to call it, unhinged people, or, whatever you want to call it, to be able to find you and make contact with you. And then at the same time, that's not to say that it can't be done, because we all know that it can. But as the old saying goes, yes, I understand that if someone wants to bad enough, they're going to do it. But by the same time, I'm not going to make it easy for them either. So, and then, just a couple other simple things to parlay off of that is, if you know someone that makes videos and someone contacts you because they know that you know that person and says, "Hey, what's that person's real name?" You know, make sure that that person actually wants you to be giving out their real name or where they live, or those details, because people that do stuff like this, they're pretty creative. It's like the old, "Hey, I used to be an army buddy with so and so and yada yada yada." And yeah, and then guys, that's not to say that the people like that aren't real. But, so typically the way that, in my opinion, you might want to handle that OPSEC, yes. And for those of you that know, OPSEC is Operation Security. It's an acronym. You're reducing Operation Security to OPSEC. And yeah, people don't need to know more than they need to know. And hopefully you see the value in watching my videos and everything and the information that I'm giving you, because you can validate that information and see that it's either good information or it's not. It doesn't matter what my real name is or where I live or any of those things. And I think a lot of times people kind of, in my opinion, lose track of that. But again, that's not to say that things like that don't exist and they aren't real and they don't happen. As an example, I, I was maybe 5 years ago or something like that. It was back when I was still on Facebook before I shut my account down intentionally. And I was trying to reconnect with a guy that used to be um, a roommate of mine when I was in the military and in the army. And I found out that he was the police chief in this little town in the state in which he lives. And so I tried to call him out of the blue, right? So I just called the police station, and I was like, hey, I know that this probably seems, off the wall, maybe, or whatever, but this person and I are friends, and um, but we haven't talked to each other in probably 30 years. But tell and I relayed a small part of a very personal story that wasn't embarrassing, but a personal story, so he would know that it was actually me. And I just gave him my number, and um, he called me, and we had a great talk. And in my opinion, that's the way that things like that should be handled. And so, if someone does contact you and say, "Hey, you know, I know this person, and I want to make contact with him," say, "Okay, fine. Tell me something about yourself that only you and this other person would know, and give me your contact information. And if they want to make contact with you, they'll make contact with you. And if they don't, they don't." So, um, but yeah, I'll get off my soapbox now. But yeah, those are things that ways that you can handle that and keep your OPSEC in place. Let's see here. Is the sound cutting in and out tonight, guys, or has it been steady and consistent? I would appreciate it if you're able to answer that for me, please. So, what about you, Ten Tigers? What uh, what channels do you like to watch, and why? Sound is good. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, that must have been the software then, the Logitech software, because it seemed like, anyways, as soon as I turned it off, the intermittent cutting in and out, and it's real specific too, because sometimes when I record videos for my channel, I'm sitting in front of the my iMac here, and if I use QuickTime, I don't have any problems at all. All of the recordings sound great. They actually sound better than what this would right now, because the software actually cleans up some of the background noise and the modulation in your voice, and gives it a nice level tonality, and different things like that. But it doesn't like the YouTube live streaming software. It doesn't seem, for some reason. So thank you for letting me know that. I do appreciate it. So have you guys seen any of that Pure Living for Life stuff? And if you have, what's your opinion on it? The small cup libation, big cup ice water. Economic Ninja, yeah, I watch him too. I wouldn't say faithfully or regularly, but yeah, I definitely watch his stuff. He was a recommended video in my feed today. I watch enough. I don't know that I'm even subscribed to him now that I'm thinking about it, but I do definitely watch his content. Another guy that I like watching, kind of along that same similar kind of vein, kind of has more to do with the law, is Steve Leto. He's an attorney, but he seems to be pretty grounded or based, or however you want to use the vernacular. But yeah, he talks about a lot of the law type things, recent law enforcement activities, Supreme Court rulings, different things like that. And I appreciate his work as well. All right, well, let's move on to the next subject here. Oh, so who do you guys like to watch for crypto content or business type stuff? Are and or are you guys into um, crypto content? All right, let's see here. Ten Tiger says I watch Alaska Prepper, Southern Prepper One. Yeah. Oh yeah, old school Southern Prepper One. Yeah. I still remember watching one of Southern Prepper One's first videos when he was digging out the LPOP on his property. And I don't know if I know who Alaska Prepper is, not by name, anyways. There's not a channel that I regularly watch that I know by that name. Uh, Chances are, since I've been watching content like that for 10 years or more, I probably have watched some of their stuff over the years, but uh, it's not someone that I regularly watch. But thanks for the heads up on that. I'll check out Alaska Prepper. I've never watched them regularly myself. So do you guys keep up at all with what's happening in the cryptocurrency world? And the reason why I'm bringing this up, the reason why I'm asking it is because, in my opinion, I do think that this is going to be a very important thing going forward. And so, the sooner that you and I and everyone else gets up to speed with this stuff, the easier the transition is going to be for us, so that we can help other people go through that transition and understand what's happening and why it's happening. Um, so that you can be someone that's there for the people that you love and care about as as our country goes through the transition to the new financial system, whatever that is, and whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so Tin Tiger says, I want to learn more about crypto. Have been watching the market for a while. Have been into other things for the past 6 months, though. I want to learn about crypto to get ready for CBDC. And for those of you that may not know, CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currencies, which is kind of the same thing, but technically not the same as cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies typically would be described as something that's decentralized, meaning there's not like one centralized government control over it versus a central bank digital currencies, which would be like um, the Federal Reserve here in the United States of America. And by the way, if you didn't know and you weren't aware, the Fed, quote unquote, isn't any more federal than Federal Express. So, if you weren't aware of such things, a good read for that is called Jekyll Island, and that's not some ominous name either. I know when I first heard that, that was kind of my first impression of it, and it probably is kind of named that way. Um, for that very reason. However, that's just the name of the island where they met when they came up with the idea or the concept outline, whatever, to create the Federal Reserve banking system and fractional banking. So, and that's written by G. Edward Griffin, Griffin. Griffin. So, but yeah, anyways, back to the subject of cryptocurrencies. Yeah, that's where everything is going. Um, I know that myself and a lot of other people that I'm aware of are aware of or into XRP, And the reason why we're into XRP is because if you look at the writing on the wall, so to speak, and you look at what people are doing versus what they're saying, yeah, they're Ripple, the company who created XRP, and then the blockchain that they operate on is called the XRPL or XRP Ledger. Um, yeah, they're meeting with the World Economic Forum and all of these other places and things, and you know, guys, if this is what was meant to be, and if this is what's going to happen, it's going to happen. With or without us. Whether I own XRP or I don't own XRP has nothing to do with you know the the things that are in play right now. However, it could make a huge difference for me and my family in the coming weeks, months, and years as our country makes the transition over to the new financial system, whatever you want to call it. 10 Tiger says, I follow 662 YouTube channels. I have so many to list. Yeah. I want multiple sources of information. I look at many overseas YouTube channels about daily life in their country. Oh, that's cool. I like your philosophy, 10 Tigers. I tend to be the same way. Yeah. That's why I retitled my channel as just Fletch Does It, because I have an eclectic interest in channels. Oh, and speaking of that, one of the channels I wanted to tell you guys about is called Den of Tools, Den, Den of Tools. And you guys may have seen him. He's got a fairly successful channel with a couple 100,000 viewers, which is pretty good for a tool channel. And he's got the talking bear, but like he's a very grounded, very based guy, not not someone with more money than common sense that just buys all. Yeah, the bear. That and he's actually based out of, well, partially he's kind of a snowbird. Certain months of the year he's up in southwest Montana, and that's where we live before we moved to the Ozarks. And yeah, just does a in my opinion, he does a good job and tells you about the sales and what's a good value, what's not a good value, what the price is now based on what it's been in the past, different things like that. All right, Tin Tiger says, I would rather have a currency backed by gold. Yeah, in a perfect world, I would too, Tin Tigers. Absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with that. And for those of you that are listening right now, and you don't know, or those that are watching on the replay, the point with a cryptocurrency like XRP is that there are what's called Nostro Vostro accounts. And basically, what that means is if you're wanting to send money from the United States of America to, let's say, Mexico, both banks on both ends have to have the currency of the United States of America and the currency of Mexico. And so if you're in excuse me, if you're in the USA and you want to send money to Mexico, a lot of times it can take a considerable amount of time, especially if you want to bank wire the money, which is not fast, but it's one of the least expensive ways to do it, especially or currently, anyways. Especially if you want to compare that to Western Union or MoneyGram or something like that. And the reason why is because the money has to get sent and then received by the other bank. And then that transaction has to be finalized. And the finalization of that transaction, a lot of times, is what takes so long. Excuse me. Basically, because if there's volatility in the prices of those two currencies at the time that the finalization of the transaction takes place. And so, you may get a little money back because, the currencies went in your favor, and you may have to pay a little more. And and if you're sending money to China or something like that, um, even longer and even more expensive. And the nice thing about what you can do with something like XRP is you can send the money directly and it gets there in like 3 seconds, and it's completely finalized, and the transaction is done. You don't need to change it um, from the United States Federal Reserve note to the Chinese yen. Yen, is that having a brain fart? But anyways, into the currency of the country that you're sending it to, and by switching to a system like this, using an intermediary currency like XRP, it doesn't matter what the currency is where you're receiving it, because yuan, yes, thank you. Um, it allows you to not need to have these pools of capital sitting dormant on both ends, especially if you're a big international bank and you're sending hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars worldwide on a daily basis. And so, yeah, that is the importance of that, and why myself and a lot of other people are very high, so to speak, on Ripple, the company, and XRP. And I don't know if you guys saw the latest video that I put out here recently. Um, um, the well, how would I say this? Ripple, if the legal action with the SEC does not get finalized soonish, and or they end up losing the legal battle with the SEC, they'll just relocate to a different part of the world, because right now, like 85 or 90% of their business is outside of the US. And they're kicking butt and taking names. And on top of that, XRP has already signed a lot of deals, but because technically a lot of this stuff is not quote unquote legal yet in financial markets, there's a lot of NDAs, or non-disclosure agreements, and until there's clarity about Ripple and or XRP, a lot of the stuff just can't be released to the public for, as the old saying goes, general consumption or public consumption. All right, Tin Tiger says, "Oh, and if you guys are wondering why I always read the comments, it's because a lot of times when people are watching this on the replay, they can't see the comments that you guys are making. So if I answer a question, but I didn't read the question, the other folks that are watching the rebroadcast have no idea the context of why I'm saying what I'm saying. So just so you guys know." All right, Tin Tiger says, "I think crypto will be the world conducts trade in the future. The way a country cannot decide on a whim to seize your assets." Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. And if you have your money in a cold storage wallet, um, that's generally speaking a very good thing, and extremely difficult for someone to um, take from you against your will. And one of the wallets that I would recommend for you guys to look at, and we're talking about cold storage wallets. And again, guys, these are just my opinions. Okay, I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not an attorney. This is not legal or investment advice. These are just my opinions. But I'll type it out here in the text chat. But it's called BitFi. And the unique thing about BitFi is that the the keys, which are alphanumeric values that are unique to your cold storage wallet, um, they're not actually stored on the BitFi wallet. And I fully realize that can be a little bit confusing, but we could literally be here for hours trying to explain all of the nuances um, about cold storage wallets and which ones are the best and why. Bitfi is the one that I probably like the most. The next is the Trezor, and then oh shoot, what's that other one called? Yeah, I'll think of it here in a minute. But anyways, those would be my top choices. And then if you don't want to, or for whatever reason you can't afford a cold storage wallet, and most of those right now cost around $100. I mean, some of them can cost up to as much as $300, something like that. However, many of the um, crypto wallets right now that are software based are free, and that they don't cost you anything. A software wallet that I've used in the past is called Atomic, the Atomic wallet. And if you're a Mac person like me, I recently made the transition the last several years to Mac, and for whatever it's worth, I couldn't be happier since I did that. We have a large family, so we have tons of computers. And I tell you what, since I got away from Windows and Windows products, my life is so much easier. My parents live on our property too, and they're older folks. And my mom is still really pretty computer savvy. The last half of her life, she was a career woman versus just staying at home doing nothing when there's no kids there, right? And anyways, um, so trying to help them keep their computers lined out, plus mine and my wife's and my kids. And yeah, it was almost a full-time job just trying to keep all the computers up and going when we were using Windows products. And getting away from Windows products made life a heck of a lot easier. And then as far as phones go, same thing, going with iPhones versus using Android or anything else for that matter. It's just life is easier with Apple products. So that, and obviously, I'm a little podunk, nobody channel. Obviously, there's nothing in it for me to tell you guys that. Just hey, that's what it is. All right, let's see. Tentaker says, look at Canadian truckers, Venezuela, Russia. Other countries are learning a lesson on how the West does business. Yeah, exactly, Ten Tigers. And for those of you that don't know, um, when the Canadian truckers were revolting against the government, um, what the Canadian government did was froze all of these truckers' accounts and things like that, didn't give them access to their money, and yeah, it was bad. So he's exactly right. He's exactly right. Absolutely. So something to keep in mind as you guys are going out there, and also that's the value of not keeping your money on an exchange. The only time that your cryptocurrency should ever be on an exchange is because you're exchanging it for something else, you're buying, or you're selling. Those three things. That's it. You're exchanging it for something else, you're buying something, or you're selling. Other than that, you need to transfer it off and keep it in your own crypto wallet, whether that be a software wallet like Atomic Wallet. And I'll type that out in chat too. It's just like it sounds, Atomic Wallet. Um, but yeah, do not, I repeat, do not under any circumstances leave your cryptocurrencies on an exchange. It's not, it's when it's on the exchange legally, it's not yours. I mean, you have a quote unquote right to it and you can claim it, but the courts in the over the last several years have consistently ruled that your money while it's on a crypto exchange is not yours. And if that crypto exchange goes out of business, while your funds are on there, the chances of you getting them are slim to none. Um, what was it, 6 or 7 years ago when the Mount Gox exchanges? It was one of the first, quote unquote, big or big name cryptocurrency exchanges, and I'll put that in the text for you guys too. It's just like it sounds, Mount Gox. Um, MT is abbreviation for mountain, by the way, Mount Gox. But anyways, people are still waiting to hopefully get some of their money back from the Mount Gox thing. And then in the most recent one, the judge in that actually ruled that the customer funds that FTX had, um, can't go back to the people who are owed that money. The Joe Sixpack, Susie Soccer Moms that are out there can't go back to them because they have to go to the creditors of FTX. And the really sad part, in my opinion, the really sad part about that too is in the instances where the people actually um, had money in there and couldn't get it back, all of those different things. What the Again, what the judge ruled is that it's not you. I realize this is kind of the intricacies of the law, and I'm not a lawyer or you know anything close to it. But having said that, it doesn't take an expert to see how the judges are ruling on stuff like this, and they're not ruling in favor of the customers, even though the CFTC and the SEC are supposed to be there to protect Joe Sixpack and Susie Soccer Mom. Mm-mm. And in my opinion, it's actually even worse than that, because what the judge has also ruled is that in some of these other crypto exchanges that already went under, the judges in these situations have ruled that the money that is owed to the SEC in fines has to be paid out before the money goes back to you as the quote unquote owner of the currency before you put it on the exchange. So, you know, um, but also, like I said in my last video, in my opinion, this gets back to the age old thing. Um, um, oh, how would I say this? And if you guys are wondering why I him and ha a lot, it's because w- you have to be careful what you say and how you say it, because there are people out there who would like nothing more than to find you saying something that can be taken out of context and trying to blow it up, so to speak, and run with it. So if you're wondering why a lot of times people like me, other people like me, we at times we may kind of seem to talk really indirectly and around in circles. There's a reason why. So something to keep in mind. Um, but to finish the thought, yeah, the SEC, they deserve to get their fine money before you, as the consumer who they're supposed to be protecting, they get their fine money before you get your money back. And in my opinion, that should tell you everything you need to know about the SEC and the current jurisprudence, quote unquote, legal system jurisprudence that's out there. And yeah, in my opinion, it's a very sad state of affairs that we find ourselves in. Ten Tiger says computers are what they are. I like the Windows ecosystem. I have supported all kinds of OS, and I like that I can tear apart, service, and replace parts as needed on a Windows computer. Yeah, me too, Ten Tigers. As a matter of fact, right here next to me, I've got a filing desk that probably has 10 laptop hard drives in it. And I tend to be the same way. Yeah, I've got a little adapter where I can plug a laptop hard drive into it, and then connect it to another computer via USB A, and to retrieve the files off of it, our homeschooling files and different things like that. So yeah, but having said that, in my opinion, it's still easier using Apple devices and Apple. So, but that's just me. Tin Tigers also says, however, for older people or people that won't watch what they are doing on a computer, a locked ecosystem like Apple is for you. Yeah, no, and I would actually agree with that. Yeah, you have a lot more flexibility with other computer ecosystems. Yes, that is true. But having said that, one of the things that I really like about, just me personally, that I really like about the Apple ecosystem, as an example, is I can record a video on my iPhone, and it records very well. And on top of that, when I want to transfer that video to my iMac, I can do it wirelessly. I don't have to have an SD card and transfer it and wait for the transfer time and the right time and all of that. It transfers it directly to it. And yeah, the the Apple ecosystem, has been in the photography and film world, the kind of the go-to for a lot of folks in that area for a long time as well. They do very well at rendering video and making video or movies, whatever, however you want to put it, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, and actually, if you if you are in a place where you can get into it, there's actually quite a bit you can do with apples too. You just have to learn what you're doing and how it works. Hey, Shalom, right back at you, Ozark Geek. Um, d- Ozark Geek, does your name start with an R? I think I know who you are, based on a conversation from a long time ago, but I'm not sure if that's you or not. So if it is you, let me know. Tin Tiger says, for sure, the right tool for the job. I have a few laptops. Don't ask me to work on yours. I don't like them. The smallest I will go is a 1 liter PC. Yeah. Yeah. And okay. Thanks, Ozark Geek. Hey, nice to quote unquote see you, hear you, talk to you. Let's see. And yeah, computers are definitely getting smaller for sure. You know, my iMac looks like a monitor, it's but it's a super powerful computer based on standards, and it does exceptionally well rendering and making video. So for that I really like it. And then like the Mac Mini, I mean, shoot, the Mac Mini is probably that big, something like that. Pretty small. And then the new Mac Studio, same thing. What do you think, Ozark Geek? What's your opinion? Are you? I know that you deal with Windows computers, or probably a lot of Windows computers at work. Have you ventured out into the Linux world or the Mac world? And yes, guys, I know that the new current versions of the Mac operating system is a hijacked copy of Linux. Yeah, I'm aware of that. All right, Ozark Geek says, I'm learning Linux and Pi stuff. Yeah, yeah. Linux is good. I've done a little bit of stuff in Linux. I think just for me personally, probably one of the easiest systems to use, especially for someone that might be kind of newer, is Ubuntu. I'll type that out for you guys if you've never heard of it, you're not aware of it. And I say that just because it's easy to use, it's easy to install. It has a look and feel pretty similar to Windows. Ozark Geek says still working on PCs daily as well. Yeah. Yeah. And the newer versions of Windows are a lot better than some of the old ones. Like Windows 8 and 9 were just trash, trash, terrible. Yeah, but in my opinion, they're kind of doing the same thing now with Windows 11 because I've got a little bit older Lenovo system that I kind of gave it a second life or a breath of fresh air or whatever you want to call it. I put in a solid state hard drive in it, and it did make a big difference in the performance of the computer. But I can't upgrade it to Windows 11 because the binary operating system on the motherboard itself, the BIOS, doesn't have some. I don't remember what it's called, but it doesn't have something in there that the operating system is looking for slash needs slash wants, whatever it is. And so it can't be upgraded to Windows 11. And so, honestly, that kind of cheeses me. But, that's not to say that there aren't issues like that in the other lines too, because there are. But having said that, one of the things that I really like about, as an example, the Mac ecosphere is you don't have to pay for upgrades. Yeah, you're going to pay more for the computer. You're going to pay more for your phone. You're going to pay more for um, your video creation tools. Um, what are Final Cut Pro 10, FPX, FPX 10, whatever it is, FCPX, Final Cut Pro 10. Yeah, okay. But anyways, yeah, when they roll out a new version of it, you just get it. You don't have to keep paying for it, which is something that I really appreciate and I really like. All right, Tin Tiger says, I was raised on Unix, so Linux is okay. Linux can be good for your OPSEC and for specialized cases like cybersecurity. Yep, I absolutely agree with that. It can, because a lot of people do not understand Linux, and yeah, it's actually a very robust system. And at one point in time, unfortunately, it was right before the um, oh shoot, when was this? It was during the dot com bust. Right before the dot com bust, I was in school, going to a tech school to um, um, learning to be having a brain fart. I hate it when it happens. Um, Local network administrator. I don't remember what that's called, but anyways, and needless to say, once the dot com crash came, the opportunities for people were slim to none after that. But yeah, a lot of opportunities were slim to none after that as well. I still remember, it was probably about 5 or 6 years after that I had a fairly high level job, and that job required me to be out in the community and networking with the community and providing value to the community, um, in hopes for or in exchange for them sending people to the call center that I was associated with. And yeah, I had some interesting discussions with some of the students. A lot of them still had this idea, they were going to make 60 to $80,000 a year when they got out of school, and that they were going to show up in, you know, a raggedy ass pair of cutoff shorts and sandals and bring your dog to work and that whole thing. It's just like, guys, there may be a few companies like that are still out there, but by and large, that's not what it is anymore. And Chris Clanton says MCSE. I don't think that if I would have finished that program, I don't think I would have been MCSC, but I would have been prepared to get my MCSC. And System Tiger says a system admin. Yeah, that's probably more along the lines of what the word that I was looking for, 10 Tigers. And Ozark Geese says Windows 11 is Windows Vista only newer. In his opinion, yes, and I would agree with that, Ozark Geek. And yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation for sure. And but things are changing, and you know, moving along pretty steadily as far as technology goes. Um, I think I talked about this in the last live stream too. That we just now got fiber optic, and it literally like revolutionized our household because of the we still have 8 kids that live at home, and so yeah, at times we have a lot of internet users, and so we needed both speed and bandwidth, and there's not a lot of internet products out there that are going to give you both speed and bandwidth, as well as good speed, download and upload. And I got to tell you, it was really nice, being able to upload my videos in about 5 minutes or something like that, versus it taking like all night, and then half the time the next morning when I went in to see if it uploaded, to find out that there was an error, and now I get to do it all over again. And so, that computer is all tied up again for a whole day because I'm waiting for the file to upload to YouTube. So, yeah, being in the being up to speed, so to speak, in the excuse me, in the technology world, definitely has its benefits. It's one of those things, when it's working right, it's really nice, but when it ain't, it's really painful. Ozark Geek says he solved an interesting Windows 11 issue recently. Windows 11 RDP doesn't like Microsoft Authenticator on an external remote session without a registry fix. Ooh, okay. Interesting. I don't think I've heard of that either. All right. And Tin Tiger says, man, I put off Windows 11 as long as I could. Now I have it on 3 computers so that I could be familiar with it. Not real happy with it, but you are forced into it these days. Yeah. Yeah. And, and we all have to do what's the best for us and our family and our own situation. And for me, it was, yeah, I'm going to Windows or Mac. But thankfully, I did a lot of research on it, and I was able to save quite a bit of money by let's see, what did I do? The first thing I did is I got a refurbished iMac, so that saved me quite a bit of money. And then um, Apple will give you Final Cut Pro as well as their picture editor program and their music editor programs. Like, you can get a package of all of those things. I think it's they call it like an education and development bundle or something like that. And if you read the fine print of the agreement when you're buying it, it doesn't say anything like, I hereby certify or attest that I'm a student. You don't have to prove you're a student or that you're a developer or anything like that. But anyways, you can get like all of these programs, worth hundreds of dollars for like 200 or 300 bucks. And so I was able to take advantage of that as well. So for me, that was a good thing. Ozark Geek says the biggest issue I have with Macs is the mice don't have a right button. Yeah, actually they can. Ozark Geek. Here's my Logitech mouse specifically designed for Macs. and you can set it up to do right click. And there's actually another one of the things I did before I bought um, a Mac, or in my case, it was an iMac. It made the most sense for me because I got a great monitor plus a computer for a reasonable price. I'm not gonna say great because it wasn't great, but it was reasonable. Um, and then also I got the matching. Here, I'll flip it over for you guys so you can see a matching Logitech keyboard. And the only thing I don't like about the keyboard is that it doesn't have the fingerprint reader on there. And for me personally, I don't have a problem with that because I've had security clearance when I was a peace officer. I had a security clearance, unspecified security clearance when I was in the military, and I've also had several background checks and stuff like that. A couple of different times when I was licensed to sell financial products and different things like that. So my fingerprints were all over the place, anyways. So it's not like I would be putting my fingerprint out into the wild by doing that. However, I totally respect it for someone else, if they didn't like that. But Tin Tiger says he loves Logitech. Yeah, yeah. And this is basically, you know, this keyboard is specifically designed for Macs, but it's built by Logitech, and I really like it. Like I said, the only thing that I would like this to have that it doesn't is the fingerprint reader, because it's just ease of convenience to just touch your finger on there and it unlocks it, or it authorizes to do certain things and whatnot. I did also see that because um, Apple or Mac, they didn't used to have their keyboard that had the fingerprint reader that also had the 10 key over here on the end of it, the 10 key. And they now have that with the 10 key. But the thing that I like about this also is that with the neuropathy that I have in my legs and whatnot, a lot of times I'm up late at night working on doing research, making content and things like that. And this has a lighted keyboard, and you still can't get the Apple keyboard that has the 10 key with it, as well as the um, backlight and the fingerprint reader. All three of those things. So I guess for me, and where I'm from, and my preferences, whoever does it first gives me all three of those. That's who I'll use. And so if and when that happens, I'll either sell or give this keyboard to one of my kids, and I'll just move forward with that way. All right, let's see here. 10 Tigers says, "What are your thoughts on YubiKey and the like?" YubiKey is a great tool. I don't personally have or use YubiKey, but I am aware of it and I do know how it works. And I would encourage it as long as you're certain that you're never going to lose the key. And drum roll, that's the problem with the UB key. The key is to not lose the key. So you would definitely want to um, put one of the UB keys in a safety deposit box or something similar to that, or a very, very extremely trusted person that doesn't live in your house or something like that. So what's your opinion on what's happening in the crypto world right now? Ozark Geek, are you still into that? Excuse me for a second here while I have some libation and water. But for whatever it's worth, talking about OPSEC when it comes to your crypto stuff, I use Google Google Authenticator and two-factor authorization on pretty much everything that I touch, as well as a VPN. Ozark Geek says you're not in, got stiffed a bit too often. Yeah, yeah, I know a lot of people that share that sentiment, and just for me, it gets back to that same thing that I was talking about in the last video that I did, um, talking about problem reaction solution, and they're creating the problem because they're allowing the space to be unfettered, unregulated, and you know when also what would seem to be Gary Gensler and the people who work for him, you know what would appear to be, in my opinion, bribe money and different things like that happening too. So they're picking winners and losers instead of letting the free market decide, you know, who's the cream that rises to the top and who's the slag that goes to the bottom. So I would be a lot happier with it in that. But unfortunately, I think that probably 90 plus percent of the couple thousand cryptos that are out there right now are going to go out of business in the next year, if not sooner. And so I know for me, I've gotten great value out of it. Um, but one of the things that I did that I feel like was a great decision was I went out and did the research, and I found support groups that of people of like-minded people that we could share ideas with and whatnot. Chris, oh, 20,000. Yes, you're right. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I said 2,000. It's 20,000. Yes, thank you. What's a zero amongst friends, right, Chris? Just kidding. No, but thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, yeah, in my opinion, over 90% of the cryptos that are out there and available right now are going to get shut down because they're not a real legitimate project. And in my opinion, which is one of the reasons why I really like XRP, because nobody has a better use case right now than XRP, in my opinion. It's a real live working product on a real live working blockchain, the XRPL. It's already up and running, has been for years, problem free, never been hacked, and it's as the old saying goes, a very wise man once walked the earth, and he said, "Don't listen to what people say, rather watch what they do." And it's just like the central banks all over the world are buying gold and stuff like that. If you keep up with those types of things, but yet on the outside, what they're telling everyone else is that, "Oh, gold is a barbarous relic. Why would anyone hold that?" That's what they're telling the public, but behind the scenes, they're buying as much as they can get their hands on. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out and unfolds. 10 Tiger says, I do think XRP will be one of the winners, but let's also watch what other countries start using. Yeah, absolutely. And that is definitely going to be something. I know that the investor group that I'm associated with, we typically, there's certain things that we Harvey Barker says, do the exact opposite of what they say. Yes, that is absolutely the truth. And yeah, especially if it's that Jim Cramer on, wow. I think his show used to be called Smart Money or something like that. I don't think that's what he goes by anymore, but yeah. Man, when that dude gives you specific advice about something, in my opinion, I would do the exact opposite of whatever he says. And how are you tonight, Mr. Barker? Good to see you. And Chris says they are buying at the fastest rate since 1967. Yeah, I heard that too, Chris. And that's the reason why I brought it up, is for that very reason. The difference between what they're saying and what they're doing. Just like JP Morgan is telling the public that cryptos are too risky and everything. And yet, behind the scenes, I think it was last week or the week before, it just came out that they patented a crypto wallet. And so, yeah, in my opinion, that's very shystery when you're telling the public it's too dangerous, whatever, making fun of people that are in the crypto world. But behind the scenes, what you're really doing is you're jockeying and positioning yourself in there so that, um, problem, reaction, solution. The problem is we're not actually supervising the space. We're not giving clear lanes for people to stay in. So people are getting screwed out of their money, different things like that. And the solution is that the banks and the government are going to come in and they're going to offer to do it for you. And a lot of people at that point are going to be willing to do that for a small fee, of course. But also understand they're going to control your money instead of you controlling your money, which is the value of having your own crypto wallet, whether it's a cold storage wallet or a software wallet. Good night, Ozark Geek. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. Yes, I will tell everyone you said hey. Good to hear from you. Thank you for joining us. And how are you tonight, Mr. Barker? What's going on in your part of the world? And Tin Tigers, getting back to your comment earlier about seeing what other countries do, there are definitely some opportunities there as well. And to finish kind of the thought that I started to say on that as well is that, um, let's see, they have my phone here. Let's see if I can bring up. No, okay, yeah. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's definitely going to be certain countries that are doing things with some of these smaller cryptocurrencies, but also be aware that a lot of these big name currencies that people are telling you that, hey, this is the future of money, yada yada yada, guys, they're lying through their teeth. In my opinion, they're lying through their teeth. They're, Bitcoin maxis or Ethereum maxis. They know exactly what, other cryptos like XRP, um, and XLM are, XDC, Algorand, um, and there's a bunch of other projects out that are solid. And getting back to one of the previous videos that I did, guys, again, not financial advice, but the things that I'm looking for is this a real live valid working project? Who is backing this project? Are they properly capitalized? Do they have the money to do the things that they need to do to accomplish the things that they tell you that they're trying to accomplish? And guys, this would be the exact same thing if you're looking to invest in a business, right? Okay. And then lastly, the amount of developers that are working on the project. And there are tools that are out there that you can go out and you can actually look at that and you can see what the developers are working on and what they're accomplishing on a sometimes day by day basis, or at least day by day, or week by week, month by month basis. And of course, other common sense things like how much volume that it's doing in a 24-hour period and stuff like that. um, Definitely things that you need to look into and be aware of, instead of just in my opinion, um, trying to jump on the bandwagon with the flavor of the month meme coin. And for whatever it's worth, that doesn't mean that I don't think there's value in some of those as well. Because in my opinion, what a lot of that it's going to come down to is what is the use case that that particular thing has. And in my opinion, basically what that means is, are people actually going to use that product when it's done or not? All right, Chris says, if they aren't backed by precious metals or some commodity that has value, I'm not interested. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that, Chris. The one caveat that I have with that, just for me personally, it kind of gets back to one of those things, just how deep does the rabbit hole go type things. Um, just in my opinion, I think that we're going to have worldwide recession. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that. My back's hurting. Um, a worldwide recession slash depression, and I think we're already in it. We've been in it for a while now. And then also understand, guys, when people give you the inflation numbers, it's BS, right? Shrinkflation has been happening for what, 5, maybe 6 years now. And so, this whole thing about what the inflation rate is pure BS. And um yeah, Tim Decker says, I don't follow the trends, I set them. Yeah. I tend to think that way as well. I kind of do my own thing. I don't really care what the herd is doing, because the herd is usually wrong. And you know for whatever it's worth. But all right, let's see here. Oh, actually, I have my phone in my pocket. So because you guys are here, i'll uh I'll talk to you about what I hold and why I hold it. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just what, based on my research and, the groups that I'm a part of in the research that other people have shared with me and I was able to verify, right? Things like that. Uh, so my largest holding is XRP. We've already kind of talked about that. The next is Doge. And guys, I understand that a lot of people seem to think that Doge is on the same caliber of like Shiba Inu and stuff like that. In my opinion, that's not it at all. That's not even close to being the case. And the reason why is because um, Doge has the first mover advantage in, like, the social networking currency, number one. And number two, Elon Musk is pimping it. And love him or hate him, doesn't matter. When he starts talking about Dogecoin, it affects the price. And because of that, I think that, and for whatever it's worth, guys, in my opinion, this gets back to the same thing that we were talking about before, with like 90% of the cryptos that are out there right now, guys, in my opinion, aren't going to survive. And so when you're looking at the cryptocurrencies that are out there, basically, in my opinion, what you're looking for is, you're looking for the cryptos that are going to survive the next year. That's my opinion. So yeah, anyways, Doge, and then ADA or Cardano. And the reason why I like that, um, Cardano or ADA. Yes, it was originally. Yes, Chris, I do believe that it was originally created as a joke. However, that doesn't mean that that's where it still is. And like I said, it's going to be based off of, does it actually have a use case, and if it has a use case, is it going to survive? and in my opinion, I think it is. Shiba Inu, but that's just me. But anyways, getting back to Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, you know, uh, they work very slowly and methodically, and they're building a quality product. And again, another one. It's another one, in my opinion. It's another one of those things that you cannot say that they don't have a use case and that they're not building a good quality product. All right, another one is VET, and they have many strategic partnerships. I believe with places like Samsung and Walmart, and so that is one of those. If you don't have a lot of money to invest, that is another one that I believe is going to survive and is going to have a good future. XLM, and for those of you that may not know, XLM is the quote unquote kissing cousin to XRP. Um, one of the original founders of XRP broke off and created XLM, and so it's a very similar product. Um, Another one is Digibyte, or DGB, as in David George Boy. And yeah, I'm sorry, I don't keep up with the phonetic alphabet. I don't use it enough to have it on the tip of my tongue all the time. So I can impress you, with my tactical prowess, because I remember exactly all of my phonetic alphabet. All right, but yeah. Anyways, Digibyte has some pretty unique features about it, and it's a project that's developing slowly, but I do think it's something that is going to survive. And again, that's another one of those low cost ones. Um, Another one is Reef, REEF, Robert Edward Frank. Again, they have a good use case and good backing, good development that is happening. Tezos, or XTZ, I think is going to be a survivor as well. And again, it's another one of those ones. Here's one of them I was thinking about earlier, 10 Tigers, when you were talking about the different countries. ETN, as in Edward Tom Nora. And I'm trying to think of what that's called. Yeah, Electronium. Sorry, I couldn't recall it off the top of my head. Electronium. They are kicking butt and taking names in Africa. And so that's another low cost that people could get into if you don't have a lot of money to put to work for you. I think the current price is 0.002, so 2/10 of a penny. Let's see here. Another one. This is a pretty long shot, but another one that might be worth looking at is VVS, as in Victor Sam. And the reason why I like them is because they're very closely associated with crypto.com. But having said that, there was some recent news that came out that the bank, rumored anyways, that the bank that was servicing crypto.com may not even be in business. No, I misspoke. Sorry about that. I was confusing two different thoughts. The bank that was servicing crypto.com has ended their relationship with crypto.com. So for whatever it's worth, crypto.com might be in trouble. So that's something that could be pretty risky. So, but if you had some ad money that you wanted to just throw at something and more or less gamble on it, that might be something worth looking into, because the price of it is 0.0000038. So uh, for that price, you could buy millions of them, and just hope and pray that they survive because they're associated with crypto.com. But and if you guys are wondering, I own very little Bitcoin and Ethereum. I do have some, but very little. And the reason why is because having a financial background, but not currently being a financial advisor and not giving you financial advice or legal advice in any way. Um, and yes, I know it probably gets kind of old for you guys to hear me keep giving you those disclaimers, but you got to in today's day and age. Um, you're going to get a higher return on the same amount of money. So, as an example, let's say you had $1,000 because it's an easy round number. If you had $1,000 to put to work and you bought Bitcoin at 20,000, and let's say Bitcoin goes to 40,000, well, you doubled your money. Congrats. That in a very short period of time, if you extrapolate that over an annual yield rate, that's a very good return on your investment. However, it this channel is for entertainment only. Yes, yes, entertainment. Yes. Um, if you look at taking that same $1,000 and you put that to work for you on something that is a lot lower cost, when that product makes its exponential rise, you're going to have a much higher return on that same investment. And so instead of going from 1,000 to $2,000, which is good in a short period of time, if you're looking at on an annualized basis, which is how percentage rates are generally equated, and then you look at, if you're buying something for 2/10 of a cent and it goes to a dollar, do the math on that and see how much your $1,000 is going to be. 10 Tiger says, in fact, you remind me a lot of Jay Leno. Yeah, I do have a long, slender face, kind of like Jay Leno. Probably not quite as long. Much bigger nose than Jay, though. And believe me, guys, I've had this nose my whole life. I've heard it all. So I know I got a big old schnopp, but is what it is. But yeah, so those are the things that get my attention because in my opinion, they all have a solid use case, they all have good backing, and they're all have developers that are either it's a finished project and they're keeping it going and it's building on a regular consistent basis, and or they have a solid development core and they are continually building on that product and consistently regularly making it a better product. And so there's a lot of stuff that's out there right now. Like Chris said, there's 20,000 different coins that are out there right now. And it is, in my opinion, probably around 99%. It might be a bit high, but not by much, aren't going to survive the next year, in my opinion. In my opinion, in the next year, between the SEC regulating by enforcement and by Congress finally coming out and producing legislation, which, in my opinion, will unfortunately also be coupled with the legacy financial system coming in and offering crypto services to the public at large. Yeah. And for whatever it's worth, guys, you know, take it for what it's worth. But in my opinion, I would never ever give my cryptocurrency to a bank if that means I have to give them the keys to my crypto. And for whatever it's worth, whoever owns the keys to a crypto is the true owner of it. And if you don't have the keys to your crypto, it's not yours, in my opinion. So, and the judges have also said that too in recent court cases. Ten Tiger says, "Let's do what Nancy does and win." Yeah, actually, over the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years or whatever it is. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi and her husband, I can't remember his name right now, but yeah, they are phenomenal, phenomenal investors. Serious. You know, it's almost like Nancy has inside information that she's acting on, but no, that can't be the case because that's illegal. That's insider trading. That's why well, what's her bucket? The um shoot, I can't think of what her name is right now. She had a show on like Good Housekeeping and all of that. And she found out that there was some bad news that was going to come out about her name and her brand. So she dumped all of her stocks, and she ended up serving time over it. But anyways, yeah, it's almost like Nancy Pelosi and her husband are have insider information like that they're acting on. But I'm sure that that's not the case. Martha Stewart, yes, thank you, Ten Tigers. It's you know, gosh, it's almost like and yes, guys, I realize I'm talking all around it without yeah, but this is the way it has to be right now. Uh, hopefully in a year or two from now, it won't be that way anymore. But for the time being, it is what it is. So, and we all have to work within the constraints that we have. All right, guys. So part of this too is I just saw it's like an hour and 43 minutes. Wow, the time flies when you're having fun. Oh, I'm having fun. Hopefully, you guys are having fun too. But um, this is supposed to be an AMA, so um, ask me anything. So just to preface it a little bit, I won't be offended by your question if you're not offended by my response. So as the saying goes, ask a stupid question and get a stupid answer. But Ten Tiger says food is a good investment. Yes, absolutely. I agree with that as well. Ten Tigers, and not just food, but good food, right? And food that's going to last. That's not full of chemicals and preservatives and stuff like that. But also at the same time, understand when you're hungry and you're starving, it doesn't matter. You're going to eat pretty much anything that's edible when you're at that point. And also, guys, understand also it if you haven't heard anything else I've said tonight, guys, or ladies. I don't know if any of you listening right now are ladies, but when I say guys, that means everybody. So um, please listen and understand this. When people tell you that, okay, so let me preface this a little bit. So there are people out there who are making a very good living by selling like freeze dried and dehydrated food and things like that. And not that they're bad. The point is they're very expensive. And so a lot of people come into this and they see that and they say, yeah, well, I'm not going to do that because there's no way I can do this. I can't afford that. It's like, and you can eat for a family my size, I could easily spend $10,000 easy right now, 10,000 bucks to buy food for my family, just for food security, right? That's a new buzzword, food security, right? Um, but the point that I'm driving towards, and the thing that I want you guys to understand, is that the people who are selling these expensive food products, they will tell you things like, "Oh, well, you need to make sure that you have food variety because if you don't have variety, you're going to end up dying because you're tired of eating the same thing." Or maybe they won't come right out and say that, but in my opinion, they're sure as hell going to imply that. And guys, I got to tell you, I personally know many people who have been to third world countries, And let me assure you, that is not the case. If you're hungry and you haven't eaten in a couple of weeks or whatever, and you got the big old distended belly and everything because your body is shutting down, at that point, you're not going to give a poop where that food came from, if it has herbicides in it or if it's organic. You're just going to want food. And that's the purpose behind it. So if you haven't heard anything else I've said, hear this. You are much better off to get what you can afford and have, like, beans, rice, corn, things like that, and as just dried foods, because if you do it properly and you store them in 5-gallon buckets, that stuff can last 20, 30 years. And you can go on YouTube right now and see people that are opening up buckets that they put away 20, 30 years ago, and the food is still perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And you know not to the same degree, but I mean, you can basically do the same thing with canned foods too. Actually, hang on a second, I got something I want to show you guys. I was thinking about as I was talking this. I'll be right back. All right, so here's canned chicken thighs. I did this myself, and if you look on there, it says chicken thighs 9/7 of 18. Oh my God, you're gonna die from botulism. No, I just made a absolutely delicious chicken soup with this the other day, and it was amazing. And the only thing that if it's properly canned, the only thing that happens to canned foods over time is they can start to lose some of their color, texture, and taste. Having said that, most of the nutritional value and things like that are in here are never lost, and you can still eat it. And if you're really hungry and you need to eat, you know, it would be better to have 50 or 60 of these, right? And you're tired of eating it, but you're sure as hell going to eat it because you're hungry. Then it gets a bit mushy. Yeah, that's true. 10 tigers, it is. That's what I meant. If I didn't say it, I meant to. Talking about texture, the texture of it tends to break down over time. But it's still perfectly good food. It still has good nutritional value. It's going to keep you alive. It's going to nourish your body, and definitely not a bad thing in any way. But the point in showing you that, the point in sharing that with you is that watch sales, right? And when you see sales of things like chicken thighs, which isn't something that a lot of people buy because um, high society snobby or whatever you want to call it, right? Is, oh no, I only eat white meat, blah 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 blah. Chicken breast, chicken breast. Kind of a funny story. I'll tell you guys talking about chicken breast. So, a family member had this cat, and this cat got sick. And so they took her to the vet, and they said, "Well, I hate to tell you this, but if you don't get that cat to eat, it's gonna die. And so feed it whatever you have to feed it if you want it to live. So, feed it raw chicken, whatever it takes to get it to eat. You've got to get it to eat, and then once it starts eating, it'll start drinking, and if you don't do that, it's gonna die." So long story short, they got in a habit of feeding this cat. Um, let's see, Schwans. That's what it was. It was Schwans. The yellow trucks that drive around and they sell you frozen food and they deliver it right to your house. It it's good, decent food, but it's pretty expensive. And um, you know, nothing against you if you like Schwan or you work for them, whatever. Hey, it's a good service, no problems. They have a quality product, but in my opinion, it's pretty expensive. And long story short, they were feeding this cat Schwan's chicken breast. Well, that's got to be one of the most, other than if you can find it on sale through Schwan's, that is one of the most expensive chicken breasts you're ever going to buy. And they were feeding this cat these Schwan's chicken breasts, and they're like, living below the poverty level. And I don't mean this in a negative fashion or negative form in any way. It's just the facts. They were living below the poverty line, yet they're feeding this silly cat one of the most expensive chicken breasts you'll ever purchase. And I was talking to him one day, and I saw him get this chicken breast out of the freezer, and they put it in the microwave, and they cooked it, and they fed it to the cat. And I was like, "What the hell are you doing? You're feeding that cat better than what you're eating yourself." And this cat was a big old fat thing too, huge, huge. It's like, I mean, you look at this cat, it's like, whoa, that is a fat cat. Um, but anyways, uh, and they were like, "Well, she won't eat anything else." I was like, "Well, I'll tell you what is like, you stop feeding her those chicken breasts and you put that dry cat food in her bowl. Yeah, she's gonna whine and cry for a couple of days, but eventually she's gonna get hungry, and when she gets hungry, she's gonna eat that dry cat food." And the point in sharing that with you parlays back or goes with the thing we were talking about before. Don't listen to these people that are telling you, well, you can't just have a whole bunch of rice and beans and corn and wheat berries and things like that because you're going to get tired of eating that, guys. That's BS. When you're hungry, you're going to eat whatever edible food you have available to you. And so, in my opinion, don't get caught up in that mess, right? And I absolutely agree with you, 10 Tigers. Food is a good investment. 10 Tiger says, "Sorry, not a cat person. Not me either." But the story is sound, works with children too. Yeah, yeah. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the way we have raised our older children who are gone and out of the house and the ones that are still at home. It's like, hey, not every meal is going to be your favorite, but this is what's for dinner, this is what's for lunch, this is what's for breakfast, whatever. And if you want to eat, that's what there is. And not that that's a perfect world or anything like that, because it's not. We've had instances where we had friends of the family or whatever that stayed the night at our house or whatever. Their parents were on a retreat or whatever, and so they were staying with us over the weekend. And yeah, they were like in culture shock because they were a family. It was like just one kid or like two kids, boy and a girl, and they were done. Hey, to each their own. Hey, um, but when it was mealtime, their mom would actually cook specifically for them whatever they wanted. And so they're at our house, and then it's like it's dinner time, and it's like, hey, well, I don't like that. You need to cook me something else. I was like, well, I hear you, and I understand, but at that time we still had the instance I'm thinking about. We still had 11 kids at home, and it's like, dude, I'm sorry, but just from the sheer logistics of it, we can't do that. You My wife and I can't be cooking 11 separate meals for 11 different people. and dinner is this, and I'm sorry. I guess I didn't realize that you you were that was the situation. But for the next meal, we'll try to come up with things that you like, and that that are affordable, and that we can do for the whole family while you're here, because we did care about him. He was a good kid and we liked having him around. But just like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. We're not going to make you your own individual meal, because that's what you're used to and that's what you've become accustomed to. And like Tin Tiger said, in time, yeah, he would come around and understand that you just can't do that. It's the same thing as being in the army or working on a ranch, or lots of different things like that where they have a chow hall. It's like, well, you eat what they serve or you don't eat. And that's just life. And so you learn to eat foods that you didn't previously like because you like eating. And as you can tell from me, the way that I look, I like eating. Yeah. Harsh reality of the situation. It is what it is. That coupled with having, pretty severe back problems hinders my ability to exercise and stay active at times, and different things like that. And, it is what it is. I don't want you guys to feel sorry for me or anything like that. Just being brutally honest. Tin Tiger says, my tip, I use a spreadsheet to keep track of Best Buy dates on the cans and box foods. Okay. An example, right now, I get canned green beans with a BB date or Best Buy date of 12/25. So new cans I buy are only that date or more. Tin Tigers also goes on to say, once kids get out on their own and need to pay for it, their habits change quickly. Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Tin Tigers, it's very true. And kind of to parlay with that or couple with that, um, I'm in my 50s, mid 50s, and my oldest son is 25 or 26, something like that. And guys, I'm terrible with dates and times, so don't judge me. No, "Well, you don't even know how old your kid is." Well, first of all, I've got 11 of them that are still with us, and no, it's not that big a deal to me. Exactly how old they are, different things like that. But anyways, um, until kids get to be about 25, 26, sometimes as early as 23, 24, if they've gone to college, different things like that. And they've got a taste of living life for themselves. Yeah, it's like, you go from being one of the dumbest people alive to like, oh, well, I don't agree with everything mom and dad said, but they're actually kind of smart. They've got some experience with this stuff, and I should at least listen to what they have to say. And that has been my experience thus far. But I didn't get married until later in life. I think I was 26 or something like that when I got married. And you know and just in case you're wondering, and not that you are, but in case you are, since this was supposed to be an AMA anyways, when we first got married, my wife was working at a pregnancy support center that supported young women who unfortunately found themselves pregnant when they weren't ready to be. And rather than have an abortion, they provided services to them so that they could live and whatever, and you know bring the child to term and help them keep the child if that's what they wanted, or put it up for adoption if they didn't want to keep it. But going through that process, we learned how birth control actually works and different things like that. And so it became my wife and I's conviction to have as many children as God would give us. And that doesn't mean I think less of you if that's not your conviction. That's just my wife and I and our conviction. And so we have had as many children as the Father would give us. And um, our youngest child is 6 now or something like that, so it doesn't seem like anyways, that we're gonna have any more, and I suppose it's possible, we could have the quote unquote "surprise" at the end. But yeah, my youngest daughter is an aunt to one of my grandchildren who is 2 years older than her. So that's always an interesting conversation, but, it's one of those things, it is what it is, but, family is fun, we're definitely family people. I couldn't imagine ever not having my children around me, and again, in my opinion, if you raise your children correctly, you discipline your children and you love them and you give them structure and you do all the things, in my opinion, that good parents do, you will enjoy your children when they become adults. When they start to become teens until they get to that 23 to 25 range, that can be a little iffy. That could definitely be a little iffy, but once they get to that point, you can actually become friends with them at that point. But when they're teenagers and when they're in their early 20s, 19, 20, 21, stuff like that, mm-mm, doesn't work usually does not work. And so, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Well, guys, we are at 2 hours and my voice is starting to dry up again. It seems like at 2 hours I hit the wall. So since this was supposed to be an AMA, if you have a question, go ahead and post it, and I'll do my best to answer it for you. And if not, I think I'm probably going to call it a night. And I'm going to take a drink here and give you guys a chance to think about it. Or if you have a subject you want to talk about, go ahead and post it now, and we'll address that. Tin Tiger says the downfall of civilization goes along with the downfall of the family and society. Yes, I absolutely agree with that, Tin Tigers. The quote unquote nuclear family in the United States historically has always been a strong point for our country. And in my opinion, it gets back to that same thing. Um, Talking about, um, well, let's see. Trying to think of how I can say this without. Well, I think the easiest way to say it is Nikita Khrushchev, who was, the former Putin type character in Russia, right? And he said that we will destroy America from the inside out. And one of the ways that they were going to do that, and they actually had it all listed out. And then at a later time, another person who was a communist um, came out and he wrote a book about it, and it's called The Rules for Radicals. And in the Rules for Radicals, again, bullet point, list, all the things. And by the way, in my opinion, that's exactly what's happening in America right now, especially in politics and in Washington D.C. They're following it to a T. So um, I would highly encourage you if you've never read, and I'll type it out here in the chat for you so that you know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the author right now, but it's a very popular, quote unquote, famous book. If you Google it, you'll find it. If you go to Amazon and search Rules for Radicals, you'll find it. But anyways, it's all about destroying the system from the inside out. And Tin Tigers asks, how can we fix the country? Well, so in my opinion, one of the very first things we need to do is we need to get back to sound money. And kind of like Chris was saying earlier in the broadcast, um, Saul Alinsky. Yeah, that's exactly right. 10 Tigers. Um, Saul Alinsky is the author of Rules for Radicals. Sorry, that didn't make much sense before that. But anyways, um, the the first answer, in my opinion, for society is we need to get back to sound money. And right now we have fractional reserve banking, which means that for every dollar on deposit, a bank is able to lend out 10. And that doesn't include the FX markets, futures exchange, FX markets. And, the as a matter of fact, there was leaked, quote unquote, who knows, but leaked FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC meetings that were taking place. And, they have, I think, like $3 trillion worth of obligations and only like $200 billion worth of reserves. And so, the current financial system we have right now is tanked. It just is. And at some point, and God only knows when that is and when that's going to happen, but at some point, there's going to be a new financial system that's going to come in. And when that financial system comes in, it's got to be sound money, money that can't be created out of thin air at a later time by the same organizations that govern our money. And, in my opinion, that's one of the nice things about the digital or cryptocurrencies. And in my opinion, cryptocurrencies are just like, um, well, they can be a tool for good or bad, just like many things in life. If it's being wielded by good people, it can be a good thing. If it's wielded by bad people, it can be a bad thing. An example of good is, like electronium in Africa and things like that. It can help them in those countries because they have really severe problems with everyone being on the take and everyone being paid off. And the nice thing about cryptocurrencies is there's always a popcorn trail of where that money has been and where it's going. And so, if you're a corrupt politician in Africa somewhere and your brother in law ends up with this currency that was supposed to be in this managed fund for the government, but your brother in law ends up with it, there's a problem, right? And so that's going to be the good thing. The bad thing is also going to be is that um, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I certainly have, and that's that currently there's a big push to, and we talked earlier about like the World Economic Forum and things like that. But Klaus Schwab was quoted as saying, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy." And so the point about that is just like now, you can't buy, as an example, and I'm sure it's an imperfect example, but trying to get as close as possible. You can't buy a copy of Office, Microsoft Office anymore. You can only lease it. And it's beginning to be the same thing with like your Windows operating systems and things like that too. They want you to pay by the month for that. And Apple Music is another one. Um, you don't actually own the songs anymore. And it's kind of a neat thing in regard to, yeah, you have access to a voluminous amount of music that you can listen to, but you don't own any of it. And at any time, if you don't have an internet connection to authenticate that your account is still in good standing with Apple Music, you can't listen to any of that music. Well, same thing with your computer programs. like Microsoft Office, Adobe Photoshop. A lot of the Adobe products are like that now. Where you can get access to everything that Adobe makes if you pay them a certain amount of dollars every month. Well, part of the way that system works is you have to have access to the internet to authenticate your account. Well, if you don't have internet access, you can't use it at all. And in my opinion, that's a huge problem, right? And the reason why all of these products and all these services are heading that way, and the reason for it is because if at any point it's like, hey, 10 Tigers, we don't like what you're saying. And not only that, we don't like the way you're saying it. And so here, we're just going to push this button, and now you no longer have internet access. Now you no longer have access to your money. Now you no longer have access to this. You no longer have access to that. You can't drive your car. You can't have an above the table job. All of those things, they can just cut you off, and that's the purpose behind it. The purpose behind it is they can completely cut off control, and control equals power. And don't ever forget that. Control equals power, and it goes back to that old saying that absolute how's that go? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And then it also gets back to the same old thing, having to do with political correctness. In my opinion, that was the whole purpose behind political correctness, was so that when people said things to you that you know are BS, you wouldn't say anything back to them. And so then those people become emboldened. And then you add on top of that AI or artificial intelligence and different things like that. And we're seeing that in the Twitter revelations of things that have been released. And you can see it all the time right now. Go to any major crypto channel. BitBoy Crypto is, I think, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, crypto channels right now. And look at the amount of conversations that are on there promoting some BS cryptocurrency no one's ever heard of. And if you look at the comments on there, there'll be like one comment, and within like a 5-minute span, there'll be 50 or 100 comments on that thread. And in my opinion, that's all being done through AI. And there are these, bogus fake ass accounts, and it'll be like, oh, well, how can I know that I'm making a good investment or whatever? And then, all of those comments that these people are making are all funneling you towards, whatever BS thing it is that they're trying to market or sell to you. And yeah, it's not a good thing. And so it, to bring this full circle now, to come back to 10 Tigers' original question, is how do we fix this? Well, sound money is number one, because right now it takes two incomes for most people to make it. Didn't used to be that way, and the reason why is because the purchasing power of the dollar has gone to poop, right? And um, and by the way, guys, for whatever it's worth, when it's just normally me or whatever, I'm not offended by vulgarities and things like that, but I try to be respectful of those of you that may have children that are listening, within earshot of this and different things like that. But um, yeah, so for me personally, that's important for me for people to know is like no, I don't have, in my opinion, I don't have that limiting, blinders on or whatever, that I think that that's a quote unquote sin or whatever, to say a curse word or a vulgarity or something like that. But anyways, moving on. Um, Sound money is the first thing. And then the second thing is that we have to have representative government again. And the original intention of the founding fathers of this country is that we would have a citizen legislature. And guys, that's not my opinion. I mean, yes, it's my opinion, but it's not just my opinion. That opinion is based on facts. If you read the Federalist letters and the Anti-Federalist letters, these were the letters that were written back and forth between all of these people. And I don't know about you guys, but like when I was in high school and things like that, I had this picture in my mind because of the paintings that I had seen of all these statesmen all in the same building, room, whatever, and they're debating, arguing back and forth on the merits of different things or whatever. And so that became my reality of how I thought that all that happened, and it's not. They were all still in their respective states, and they were mailing letters back and forth and debating things. And so, historians have saved all of these letters and all this information. And so, we do know for a fact the things that they believed and the things that they thought. And, it's important. In my opinion, it's very important. And, you know, that, so yeah, we do know that was their intent, and that's the way they intended it to be. They sure as hell did not want professional politicians. Now, having said that, yes, I'm 100% in support of term limits, but only in as much as that if we're gonna clean the swamp, then we need to clean the whole swamp. And here's what I'm talking about. Um, I had an acquaintance not long ago who was I think he called himself a political strategist. Basically, he was a bureaucrat. And what a lot of people don't realize, it's like, when you get elected and you're a new congressperson or senator and you get sent to DC, someone's got to teach you the ropes. Someone's got to teach you, well, if you need this done, you got to grease this wheel. If you want that done, you got to grease that wheel, whatever. And so these bureaucrats teach all these politicians how all of this works. Like, okay, well, if you want to make some side money, some bribe money, whatever, some hush money, well, you got to talk to this person, you got to talk to that person. And so I'm all in favor of term limits, but only if we also completely drain the swamp, get rid of all the bureaucrats. Need to have laws on the book about um, uh, y- politicians can't be allowed to be political strategists after they've served, different things like that. And the reason why all of this stuff is because nothing ever changes. And so, with that system all still in place, let's say you got rid of everybody that, and there's in a lot of places, there's these lifelong politicians that have been serving for, half their life or more. They've been an elected politician, and some of them, like Bernie Sanders, have never worked an honest day's labor in their life for an honest wage. You know, in my opinion, they've been sucking off the teat of the government in one form or fashion their whole life. Um, and so, even if you got rid of all of these lifelong politicians and you bring in a bunch of new blood, within one or two election cycles, you're going to have the exact same thing again, because the bureaucrats are going to train the new politicians. Hey, here's the people from this corporation, that corporation, that corporation that are going to pay you bribe money, whatever. And, because they get some of that money and nothing's going to change. And so without that, but so hopefully I'm answering your question, 10 Tigers, but in my opinion, that's the way that you would do it. And as long as we're talking about solutions and things like that, getting back to the cryptocurrency thing, my solution for that would be something very similar, which is just simply that, um, yes, it is not the SEC's job to create law. It's their job to enforce the law. However, if the SEC, in my opinion, if the SEC actually wanted to serve the American people, Joe Sixpack, Susie Soccer Mom, in my opinion, this is what they would do. They would say, okay, for whatever reason, Congress has not been able to come up with new legislation. However, we are still tasked with enforcing this. And so from this point moving forward, here's the rules that we're going to work off of after, meeting with a bunch of uh, these respected companies and programs like the list that I gave you guys earlier. Working with respected people and organizations like that, and it's like, okay, here's the rules we're going to work with until Congress gives us something different than this, or they change this, or they amend this. But in the meantime, this is what we're going to do. And so everyone knows what the rules are. Everyone has a level playing field. And we can all move forward and have some surety. And in my opinion, guys, this is very important in my opinion. So um, the second, in my opinion, the second most important thing that I've shared with you guys tonight is this: is understand that there are literally trillions of dollars that are waiting on the sideline that are going to pour, in my opinion, that are going to pour into the crypto markets very within the next year or two. The total market cap of the crypto market, I think, just went over $1 trillion, and it might be hovering back and forth. Excuse me. Let's see if my program will tell this little one. Nah, this one here won't tell me. But anyways, I just look at it like yesterday. It was over $1 trillion. It may have dropped just below it or whatever. But um, understand that the reason why they're sitting on the sideline and they're not coming in is because there's not clarity. And the reason, in my opinion, the reason why there's not clarity in the space is by design. And when all of the legacy system has done everything that they want to do, has everything in place, whatever, then all of that money is going to flow into it. And then you're going to see it like jump up to like maybe $3 trillion in pretty short order. And then maybe over a year or two, it'll jump up to like $10 trillion or something of the sort. But, understand that like in all of the markets, in the futures exchange markets, the FX markets, stuff like that, we're talking quadrillions of dollars. And so, excuse me, in my opinion, that's not a far stretch by any imagination that in a year or two that we could see a $10 trillion market cap in the crypto markets. Tin Tiger says, I hear that in China, lawyers are not allowed to become politicians. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Uh, just myself, Tin Tigers, because I was in school recently. When I moved to the Ozarks, I was enrolled full time into school to be a social worker because I genuinely care about people. I want people to have a good life. I want people to have a good family, different things like that. But crazy, weird, wacko, in my opinion, crazy, weird, wacko world out there as far as that goes. But yeah, trying to figure out how to say this. Most of your modern day colleges have now become socialism, which is communism light, in my opinion. indoctrination centers, and they know this. And many of your high schools have now become that as well. And in my opinion, that is also why they're now, you know, as the old saying goes, floating it down the river to see what happens, trying to see what people's reaction is to lowering the voting age from 18 to 16, because 16-year-olds are very impressionable. And the average 16-year-old spends more time with their teachers than they do their parents. And unfortunately, most parents right now are struggling just to make ends meet, working their fingers to the bone. And in my opinion, that's all by design. And yeah, I don't know what the solution for that part of the equation exactly is. My wife and I have been homeschooling for 20 years, something like that. But that was our conviction. And not that anyone else needs to agree with me. And I don't think you're wrong if you don't homeschool your kids. Because the reason why I always preface things like this is because um, I don't want to offend good people. I really, truly don't. And, unfortunately, there's a certain segment of people out there, the population or whatever. And as soon as you tell them you homeschool, they somehow equate that to you're attacking them because they don't homeschool their children, or they feel guilty because they don't homeschool their children, but they're convicted about it and they want to, but they can't, whatever the case may be. uh, for whatever it's worth, I think it's probably one of the good things, or one of the few good things that ended up coming out of the whole C-19 health scare thing, is a lot of people learn that, yeah, you really can. There's a lot of good tools out there, and just as long as we're shooting the bull here, K-12 is one of them. K-12 is an online school where, um, you know grade school through high school. um, Technically it's a public school, but it's all online, and so your kids are at home and they're doing online learning. And so technically they're enrolled in a public school, but they're at home. And, in my opinion, that's a good place to start if people are looking to get into homeschooling their kids, if that's your conviction and if that's what you want to do. Because homeschooling is not easy. And if it's not something that you have a conviction for, then it's probably not something that you should do, because it's not easy. It's very difficult. And as long as we're talking about that, guys, I am not I am not the primary educator in this family. My wife is. And, over the years, I have been extremely careful not to, quote unquote, steal her thunder, because she is the primary force behind that. And she is the one that is, over the years, has made sure that our children have a good education. All right, Tin Tiger says helping people starts with education. Things like home economics, yep. 4-H, yep. CPR, yep. Need to be taught in school. My parents thought that they were being radical by purchasing a CD, the limit of their investments. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of truth to that, as well. Um, and in my opinion, Ten Tigers, one of the best classes that I ever took in high school was called, I think they called it something like functional math or something like that. But they taught you how to figure out the rate of return on things. They taught you how to balance a checkbook, stuff like that. And in my opinion, I have learned and retained more from that I could easily apply to my modern day life than most of the advanced math classes that were out there and being offered. But yeah, I think that over the coming years, you're going to continue, in my opinion, you're going to continue to see a huge backlash against uh, parents not sending their kids to universities anymore, for that very reason. um, because they're communism and indoctrination centers, in my opinion. And yes, I realize that's a pretty radical thing to say for some of you all out there, but um, uh, as an adult who was recently in school with a bunch of 20 somethings, uh, I assure you that is the way that it is. And I also assure you, they do not like having someone like me in their class. Because with young kids you can shame them and you can embarrass them, and it's like the modern day, putting a dunce cap on a student and putting them in the corner. um yeah, it's still going on, it still happens. And someone like me who didn't do their college education until a little bit later in life, and they were more grounded and based in reality and how the world actually works versus the way that they idealistically teach you that it quote unquote should work. Yeah, it's not pretty. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think CPR is really important too. 10 Tigers. I don't know if I've told this story in this venue or not, but in high school, I took all the classes and I was a first responder. And I never rode on the ambulance, but I was certified to do it. I was a first responder in the little community that I grew up in the Mountain West. The ambulance service was all volunteer. People that took these certification programs and whatnot and got certified, and then you could volunteer and help out with the ambulance. And long story short, my dad was only 38 or 39, and he had a heart attack. And because of the training that I had, I was able to, long story short, I was able to save my dad's life. It was a small area, and by the time if we would have waited for the volunteers that were driving the ambulance to come get my dad, stabilize him, and drive him to the emergency room, he probably wouldn't have lived. But I immediately recognized the signs of a heart attack, and we immediately threw him in the truck, drove him up to the emergency room, and ultimately saved his life. And so, yeah, it's in my opinion, that's yes, I absolutely agree with that. It's very important. All right, Tin Tiger says, "What? Your best class wasn't your pronoun usage class?" Hey. So I've got an interesting story, and then I'm gonna wrap up because my throat. Hang on, I need to take a drink, and then I'm gonna answer your question, Tin Tigers, and then might have to call it a night because my voice is fading. Um, I took a class called political science. It was required, and it wasn't. Let's see, how would I go about explaining this? So social work is a very, very, very woke environment. We'll just put it that way. Um, they're actually training new social workers that you are not just a social justice warrior, you are a social justice warrior enforcer because you have the weight of the government behind you. And yeah, it's not pretty. And if you have a traditional family with traditional values, um, a young new social worker is not your friend. And don't ever forget that. But yeah, um, so when I went into this situation, I tried to find the most conservative school that I could get a social work degree in, and it was a Catholic university. And I guess what I didn't realize at the time, but I don't think a lot of other people realize either, especially when it comes to distance learning or online learning, whatever they want to call it now. Um, um, the most all of those classes are taught by what's called adjunct faculty. So even though you are taking a class from a very conservative university, that class can be taught by a bat dung crazy liberal somewhere in New Mexico. Ask me how I know. So, anyways, I was writing a paper on the First Amendment, and mind you, there were people that were in this program with me that were, um, they weren't even ESL, English as a second language. They weren't even ESL. They just weren't terribly bright people, and they really struggled to communicate basic things. But as long as they were able to memorize and regurgitate the information back to the instructor the way that it was given, they would get like A's on their paper. Me, on the other hand, I would write a good, solid paper, but because I wouldn't play the game and repeat back to them the things that they wanted to hear, the best grade I ever got on any of my papers was a C, because, it's like I met the minimum requirement. And, and guys, trust me, it really is this way. This is not me exaggerating. This is not me making it sound worse than it is. It's actually probably worse than what I'm telling you. That's the truth of the matter. And anyways, I was writing this paper on the First Amendment, and I was making the point that um, you know, the standard by which something is acceptable to say or not is not whether or not it offends somebody else or hurts their feelings. And the reason why is because then it just becomes a contest over who can be offended the most and the easiest. And that's where we are. And that was the whole point of political correctness, is because when someone said something that was out in, left field or whatever, you wouldn't feel comfortable challenging them on that and say, no, that's BS. And so the one of the major points that I made in my paper was, I said that um, the First Amendment does not guarantee that you're never going to be offended. Actually, it's just the opposite. It guarantees that at some point you are going to be offended and someone's going to hurt your feelings. But that's the price to pay for living in a free society. And this, in my opinion, this crazy ass liberal professor who was adjunct faculty to the conservative Catholic college that I was going to. Um, using the highlighter tools or whatever, critiquing tools that are in Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, highlighted the part where I said, actually, the First Amendment guarantees that at some point you're going to be offended. She highlighted that and she said, this is the only part of your paper that I agree with. And she like finished off her statement by saying something like, however, you met the minimum requirements for this assignment, so I'm giving you a C for your paper. Meanwhile, there's people, who could like literally, barely write, your basic 5 paragraph paper, right? 5 paragraphs, introduction, 3 main points, and close, right? Tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them, right? Um, and, you know, barely coherent, get nays because, they're parroting back to the professor, instructor, whatever you want to call them, parroting back to them what they wanted to hear. And guys, I understand that is the world, that is the society that we live in right now. And we have to get away from political correctness and start being honest about things and start really talking about things again, and understanding that, like I said earlier, it's genuinely not my heart's desire to defend a good person. It really isn't. However, we all have to accept the fact that occasionally that's going to happen from time to time. And, that's the price that we pay for living in what's left of our free society. All right, Tin Tiger says when a person gets out of high school, they should know CPR and how to stop the bleed. Yeah, I personally I agree with that as well. Tin Tigers. Um, when it comes to long-term health issues, just me personally, I tend to be more of, I would rather have an herbalist or essential oils or something along that line, something a little bit more natural. But understand clearly, if I'm laying on the side of the road from a car accident and I've got a sucking chest wound, a compound fracture of the femur with arterial bleeding, I want someone trained in emergency medicine, not an herbalist. In my opinion, there's definitely a place for both of those things. But also, in my opinion, I mean, just like now that we would think it was repugnant to look back in the dark ages, medieval times when they would give you lead treatments, like inject lead into you or drain blood from your body, those different things that for whatever reason, they believed to be true, that they were giving you medical care, medical treatment. I think the same thing is going to be said and thought of the same way, in the same time span in the future. They're going to look back with the same repugnance and say, "What the hell were you thinking? What in the world would ever make you think that the way to cure the human body of cancer is putting poison in it? You're trying to heal the human body by putting poison in it. What the hell were you thinking?" And in my opinion, we're going to end up in a situation like that again. Well, guys, thanks for joining me tonight. I do greatly appreciate it. And for those of you watching on the replay, thank you for watching as well. I greatly appreciate it. And this is something we're going to try to do every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And even if you can only pop in for a few minutes, like some folks here, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you participating and being a part of it. And yeah, if you have any questions based on anything we talked about in this, and you want to leave it in, just the regular comments in the video, by all means, leave your questions. And as long as it's a real legitimate question, um, I'll give you an answer. But like we talked about before, ask a stupid question, you're probably going to get a stupid answer. So, but if it's a real genuine question, I'd be happy to help you out as best I can. Well, again, guys, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you had a great day and you're having a good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is in the world that you are right now when you're watching this. Thank you. I appreciate you. And we'll talk to you soon. Until next time, we'll see you then.